Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with a track guide for the new daily race seat at Autopolis in the Red Bull Junior car that you can see on screen at the moment. So this is a very high downforce car, not particularly much power in it, but it has a very strong front end and will take a little bit of getting used to get the maximum out of this car. I've managed to do a time that was currently P2 in the top 10 stars, but I'm guessing that will drop down quite a lot as the night goes on. Now this is a track that I genuinely struggle on over the seasons in FIA. I've never really done particularly well at this track. I do struggle at it. There are some corners that actually where I struggle on with this car, not as much of an issue because you can take them pretty much flat out. The corner there that you take in this is 100% flat. You do not need to lift, and that is one of the areas where I do struggle on in general with this track. So that has helped out a little bit, but I do expect to struggle a little bit later when we possibly do a stream round here trying to improve our DR. But I'm going to give you the tips that I did to get yourself as high up on that leaderboard as physically possible. Now the lap was okay. There was a little error there. You can see where we lost the rear end and we had to take a very narrow line through that corner, which lost me a little bit of time because I couldn't carry the speed through that corner. So I think 10th or 2 down on what I could have done. I was actually ahead of the fastest time in the EU region at one point, but that mistake there cost me quite a lot of time. But yeah, very technical track. The last sector is extremely important to get the most out of, and it's very difficult. We have to be so smooth around this. That's one thing I have learned about this track, is smoothness really pays off. After watching TRL Lightning on this track, you really see how the smoothness actually gives you lap time rather than being aggressive. So let's start this lap. You can see we've got the Ghost starting 4 tenths ahead, so when we go over the line, what you'll see is that P1's time is automatically starting ahead of us. I always do that just so it's not in my way through the corner. So we're going to turn that off before we go into turn 1. You see, turning the Ghost off, and we're going to brake just past the 100 board. You can see braking inputs going in there just after the 100 board on the left hand side. And now you're going to get that trail braking all the way through the corner, following the tarmac lines that you can see on the track there. Pretty much a very good guide to use. However, you will try and take a slightly wider line with this car with the amount of downforce it's got, because you want to get more exit speed. As you can see, putting the power on before we're pretty much on the apex of the corner, and maximum throttle. The more throttle you get through this corner, the better your exit's going to be, and the more time you're going to gain through that sector 1 split. You can see a little bit down on P1s there at that point. However, now into the next braking zone, you're going to see we're going to brake just pretty much dead on that 50 board. So when we get to that 50 board, you're going to see the braking inputs going in, as right there you can see just our first inputs going in. And now you're going to try and aim to take as much speed through this really fast right hand corner as possible. You see down into 3rd gear just as we get into the apex, and you can see that we're actually putting throttle inputs in before we're hitting the apex again, because you want to keep some throttle in to stop the rear going a little bit loose through this corner, and then 100% throttle all the way through this left hand corner. You can see a slight little lift off the throttle as we go into this left hand corner there, lifting off the throttle, letting the car coast briefly before putting that throttle inputs back into the throttle and accelerating all the way through the corner into the next braking zone, which as soon as the car is pretty much straight on this at this point now, you're going to hit that braking inputs and aggressively on the brakes now, down into 2nd gear, then 1st gear before we hit the apex. A little bit of throttle inputs again, and then back into 2nd gear and put that maximum throttle and use the full width of the track. You're going to see you really need to be aggressive on the throttle there to get a maximum speed. You can see we've actually caught up a bit with the Ghost in front. Now this corner is 100% flat out. We're going to slow it down, but it's completely easily flat. Just skim the apex of the corner. Try not to get your left hand tire too much on that curb, because you can start drifting slightly through there. And then flat out now up into the next braking zone, where we're going to brake just past the left hand board. You're going to see there on the right hand side, just past that left hand board, you're going to start braking. Make sure you brake just past it. And now we're going to go down into 2nd gear. So what we're going to do now is aggressive on the braking, downshifting into 2nd gear. And we're going to take quite a late apex. You want to get up high and then square it off so that at the top of the hill you're pretty much square with the apex, and then on the throttle nice and early and take as much speed through the corner as possible. Now down, you can see we've actually gained a lot on the P1 time. We're actually ahead of the #1 time in Europe at this point. And now into this really fast right hand corner, we're going to do this in 5th gear. You can see a little bit of braking inputs going in there, and then we're going to lift off the throttle, let it coast briefly before putting throttle back on the car in the throttle, and then accelerating all the way through the corner. We run a little bit wide there. You can see that little mistake, and this is going to compromise our entry into this corner. You can see the red line being the line we're taking, the green line being the line that I would rather have took. You can see going all the way down to 100 miles per hour. When you do that correct, you want to be going about 105 to 100 6 all the way through there, and that gives you more momentum all the way up this hill also. So losing a little bit of time there, and now we're just going to lift off the throttle as we attack this corner. Just a little lift off the throttle, and then very smooth through this section. It's so important to brake nice and early. You see braking inputs already going in, lifting off the throttle and letting the car coast with a bit of braking input there, and just make sure you don't take it too far wide. You want to be nice and smooth, because the smoother you are through that section, the more aggressive you can now be on the accelerator, working our way up this hill and through this right hand corner. So you can see maximum throttle now because of the line we took into third gear, skimming the apex of that curb, using the full width of the curb on the right hand side, and then just a little lift off the throttle as we go into this left hand corner under the bridge. You can see there with the shadow, a little lift off the throttle, then back aggressively on the throttle into fourth gear and flat out now into this final very tricky corner. This final corner, you've got to get the car all the way over to left, skimming the curb on the left hand side, and then just a little dab of the brakes there. Not too aggressive, you don't want to be aggressive on the brakes, just a little bit of a dab down into third gear, and then maximum throttle now, trying to stay as close to the apex as possible. You see we're missing it a little bit, but we upshift into fourth gear just to stop that on the sip, and carrying as much speed all the way onto the start straight and over the line for a 1 minute 41.5. It's an okay lap. It's not as we definitely made mistakes on there. I think we could improve by a 10th or 2 at least, maybe 3 tenths if we really nail a lap, but I was quite happy with that for a track guide, and hopefully that'll be reasonably okay to start us towards the front when we're trying to improve our DR later on. Anyway, I hope this track guide has helped you out. We're going to now check it out from the chase camera just to show you the full width of the track that we're using, and try and point out some of the points that we lost time on and stuff like that. So you'll see into this right hand corner, you're going to see using the full width again, all the width there. You can see how we put a little bit of throttle in there just to stop that car drifting. As you actually see, it's on the verge of drifting through that corner. This car has such a strong front end that you have to be very careful that you don't get the rear drifting, because then you start losing time, because the car does not have the power to actually carry them drifts. If you start drifting, you lose time, especially through this corner. Again, you can see just skimming the apex of that curb, not on the curb for too long, because again, if you're on there with maximum throttle, the rear can start going loose. Again, this left hand corner, you're going to see what I mean about squaring off at the top of the hill. So right at the top of the hill, we're squared off perfectly there on the throttle nice and early, and then working our way on the downhill section. And then this is where we made that little error that's probably cost me a 10th or so. You'll see now we go a little bit too aggressive getting onto the curb. We go just a matter of inch too long, too wide on that corner, just get a little bit unsettled, and that loses us the speed all the way up this section here. However, we do this quite nice and early on the brakes, taking it nice and smooth, enables us to get on the throttle nice and early, carrying maximum speed all the way through the section. You see that little lift again off the throttle at full speed, and then into that final corner. And again, we could have done this slightly better. You can see we actually missed the apex. You can see we've got a little bit of a gap now. Would have been better if we could have held it a little bit tighter to the apex on the final part and carried the speed through there. But still a pretty solid lap at 1 minute 41.5. I'm going to let you watch that lap at full speed now. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the like button. Let me know in the comment section if it's helped you out, you know, if it's gained you any time in the race pace as well. I really like reading these comments, so thanks again. Make sure you hit that subscription button and hit the like button, and I'll see you all again for another video. Thanks again for watching, everyone.